Here's what you get on today's episode of Guts, Grit, and Great Business.
Typical media interview is 4 minutes and 20 seconds. When I was on Fox News for Profit of Kindness 7 times in the first week, let me tell you, my longest interview on TV was 4 minutes and 20 seconds. So what I know is you got to get your message out quick, effectively, and fast, as well as be resonant with it, authentic with it, and have it so that you can speak it anywhere, anytime, right? And you don't have to think about it. And I think when people have to think too much about their message, that's what trips people up. So I'm really big on be a problem solver, not like, here's what I do, here's what I do, here's what I do, but what's the problem in the marketplace and how can you co-create a solution so that you're the solution to what the media needs, your prospect needs, your client needs. And that's what I like people to speak to.
The adventure of entrepreneurship and building a life and business you love, preferably at the same time, is not for the faint of heart. That's why Heather Pierce Campbell is bringing you a dose of guts, grit, and great business stories that will inspire and motivate you to create what you want in your business and life. Welcome to the Guts, Grit, and Great Business Podcast, where endurance is required. Now here's your host, the legal website warrior, Heather Pierce Campbell.
All right, welcome. I am Heather Pierce Campbell, the legal website warrior. I'm an attorney and legal coach based here in Seattle, Washington. Welcome to another episode of Guts, Grit, and Great Business. So I'm so excited about our guest today. This is going to be a topic that's new for me and new for people that have been listening to the show. Welcome to Jill. Jill Lublin is an international speaker on the topics of radical influence, publicity, networking, kindness, and referrals. She is the author of 4 best-selling books, including Get Noticed, Get Referrals, and co-author of Guerrilla Publicity and Networking Magic. Her latest book, Profit of Kindness, went #1 in 4 categories. Jill is a master strategist on how to position your business for more profitability and more visibility in the marketplace. She is CEO of a strategic consulting firm and has over 25 years experience working with over 100,000 people, plus national and international media. Jill teaches a virtual publicity crash course and consults and speaks all over the world. She also helps authors to create book deals with major publishers and agents, as well as obtain foreign rights deals. And we will include Jill's contact information and her free gift in the show notes. So at the end of the conversation, be sure to visit us at legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast, and we will have all of the links there. So Jill, I can't believe this about you. It says 200 and plus speaking engagements a year. And these are just additional notes that I, hunted down for you online, and that you have shared your powerful networking and publicity strategies on the stages of Tony Robbins, T. Harv Eker, Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, Laurel Langmeyer, and many others. And are you based in San Francisco?
Yes, well, a little bit north, but yes, absolutely.
North.
And such a blessing to share the stage with those luminaries and hang out and talk to them and talk with them. It's been really wonderful.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I'm still stuck on the 200 plus speaking engagements a year. That just blows my mind. How do you do it? How did you get into this world?
Well, a few ways. Number one, I was on planes a lot, which,
Yes.
Of course, I'm not so much anymore and doing a lot more virtually.
Yes.
But I got into it because actually I owned a PR agency and got, as I like to call it, tapped on the shoulder by a literary agent to write my first book, Guerrilla Publicity. And in the writing of that book, there also come speaking tours. And then I discovered, wow, I really like this. And ended up really switching my whole business model into teaching now virtual publicity courses. And then I do some private consulting, closed down the agency. And now I speak and deliver virtual publicity courses and having a blast. This is, for me, just far more what I love doing. And yet I have all the, knowledge of what it's like and what's needed to run major publicity campaigns. So I combine them all because the truth is my heart's with the entrepreneur and small business owner, and they usually can't afford major publicity agency kind of fees. So I switched everything in my programs and just started doing the way delivering differently. And that's been wonderful.
Well, I love that. And you and I then have similar hearts for entrepreneurs, because that's who I serve as well. And I think when it comes to business services, including legal services, which I provide, entrepreneurs can be left out of the marketplace in a lot of ways, right? So talk to us a bit, because you come from the big world of publicity. Talk to us about what publicity is for people that are just, listening. They've never had a publicist or looked into publicity for themselves. Talk to us about what that world looks like.
So here's my definition of publicity. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
It happens from the minute you walk out your door, or in this case, into a Zoom room.
Yeah.
You're doing publicity, right?
Yep.
And so what I'm always raising my white flag about, and standing on a soapbox, I don't even know what a soapbox is, but if I had one, this is what I would do. I would tell people that you must realize that you're always doing public relations, whether you're attending an event, networking, now by Zoom, so easy, we love it.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, a great way to keep spreading your name and creating more visibility, right? You are still always promoting and presenting yourself. So you'll see behind me, yes, my 4 books. And when I work with anyone who has a book or even thinking about a book, I'm like, great, let's laminate a book cover and put it up behind you, number one. Let's say you're a speaker, do a banner and put it next to you. Let's say you have a product, make sure that it's out on the table and people can see it. So, in Zoom is wonderful ways to promote and present yourself, regardless if you're in a virtual room or a real room, and publicity is always happening. So this is the thing, you got to be clear and consistent with your message. We can talk more about that, but I want people to know that you're always doing publicity. It's all publicity, right?
I love that. Yes. Well, it's, in the same way that you're always doing publicity, whether you want to or not, you're always communicating, right? In all of the ways that we communicate, through your tone of voice, through the words that you're saying, your appearance, everything is communication.
Absolutely. And it's all public relations.
Yes.
So what I also know about the power of PR is that it drives consistent clients. It's an attraction strategy. It's a powerful way to build trust and familiarity, recognition and credibility. And all of that matters for entrepreneurs, for small business owners. You've got to be doing things. And by the way, this doesn't mean you have to get in the New York Times or on Good Morning America or, even podcasts, although I think podcasts are fantastic, just like you're doing, and a great way for people to get out there quickly, easily, and efficiently, as well as effectively.
I love that. So aside from having the awareness that everything we do is publicity, what else should we be thinking about for those of us that are entrepreneurs, that are in charge of our own, businesses, and that are making all the decisions? What are some of the things you walk your clients through?
So messaging is first. So, because you can have a great product to sell, you can offer a great service, you can coach, you can do all the things that people I know and work with do. And if you don't know how to present it, speak to it, be concise and precise. I'm really big on concise and precise, Heather, because truth is, people are very impatient, and I'm so used to dealing with media. A typical media interview is 4 minutes and 20 seconds. When I was on Fox News for Profit of Kindness 7 times in the first week, let me tell you, my longest interview on TV was 4 minutes and 20 seconds. So what I know is you got to get your message out quick, effectively, and fast, as well as be resonant with it, authentic with it, and have it so that you can speak it anywhere, anytime, right? And you don't have to think about it. And I think when people have to think too much about their message, that's what trips people up. So I'm really big on be a problem solver, not like, here's what I do, here's what I do, here's what I do. but what's the problem in the marketplace, and how can you co-create a solution so that you're the solution to what the media needs, your prospect needs, your client needs. And that's what I like people to speak to.
Mm. Well, and what I'm hearing from what you're saying is that it's challenging for people to be concise, right? If that's one of the most important things that we have to do and one of our biggest struggles, maybe that it's also a challenge for people to whittle down their messaging to have the amount of clarity that it takes to deliver it in really short snippets.
Yes, very true. And sound bites, you've got to speak in sound bites. You can't go on and on. People get bored. I like to say, when you see their eyes glazing, you've gone on too long, and already then it's too late, right? So sound bites, simple things to say, quick and easy. I mean, I can give you an example of mine.
Would love that.
Okay, good. And let me just tell you, not only have I in my message created sound bites, which you'll hear, but I also have made it, it's about 12 to 15 seconds, right? Because again, then we have time to chat. I'm used to media where then we have time to engage in conversation. Even with prospects and in social media, all of this works, okay? All of it works, and it's highly effective. Plus, frankly, I'm giving you thousands of dollars of PR advice in very simple, short content. Okay, so that's what I work with people to do. So I'll give you an example. This is mine. So I would say the problem today is 4 out of 5 businesses will go out of business because you have no clue how to create publicity without spending a fortune. I want to give you 3 guerrilla publicity tips today to get your message in the media. The first way to get noticed is to create your ooh, ah factor. The second way is to create the I've heard of you somewhere syndrome. And the third way is focus on networking magic and show up in your communities at least twice a month for name and face recognition. Heather, that's it. So simple. You noticed?
Yep.
Easy sound bites, your ooh, ah factor. People love that when they remember it, right?
Yep.
I talk in you language. I always want you to talk in you language, because when you're being interviewed, you need to talk to your listeners. You need to talk to the viewers. You need to talk to the people who are listening. So lots of you language is really another key.
I love that. Well, and I love even just the example of how bite-sized they really are, right? You just get right to the point, very actionable. So what are the ways that people try on their own and get it wrong, right? So somebody listens to you and goes, oh, okay, I got this. I'm going to go do it. Where do people get off the path?
A couple different ways. Number one, they get too concerned with, shall I say, using me, us, or my language. I call it beat the chest publicity, right? In other words, you can be promoting. Listen, I want everybody listening here to promote, and be proud of it and be excited about it, because that's your gift you're giving to others. By being who you are out in the world, you are giving your gift. That's how I see it. And I've worked a lot with people who are scared, who don't know how, who are beginners in this arena, who think they're quote unquote not ready. All of those things, by the way, can be easily overcome. And the point is to take the right steps. So I think a lot of it sometimes is mindset around whatever people are thinking. And what I've always been able to do is help people make publicity really easy and accessible, and able to take small steps that are comfortable for you and where you are right now. And let me just say, I remember an interior designer that I worked with, and she always, when people would say, what do you do? She would stumble and fall, and in her words, feel like a deer in headlights, because she never knew what to say. So I taught her what to say based on this problem solution. She was actually in my publicity course. And she told me afterwards, she goes, Jill, I want you to know, I went to a networking event. In this case, it would be a Zoom networking event. And she said, I closed a $2,000 client. She said, I've never closed a $2,000 client before, but I knew what to say. And so what I notice is that when your confidence goes up, your sales also go up. And because you're able to communicate simply and effectively, and my 2 words, concise and precise. And I think, I'm just so used to media. Listen, I was recently, in this past week, actually, talking to major radio stations across the country. And, as I'm talking about Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben's and why are they changing the branding, right? And the whole PR thing around all of this that's going on. Now, Heather, you got to get something. I'm not necessarily a branding expert, but, when they'd introduce me, they'd say, okay, now we're introducing PR expert Jill Lublin. She's going to talk about blah, blah, blah. And then they direct them to the website afterwards. So they're always redirecting back, which, is the other thing I want to say to people. No matter what the media asks you, just say yes. Just say yes. And then we'll bridge them over to what you need to talk about. But, I think these are really wonderful times to be getting your name out there. And then if for whatever reason you're not ready or it's not just the moment, let me also say that with publicity, I want you to think of it like a gardening process. You got to plant seeds, and you plant seeds 3, 6, and 9 months ahead so that others are talking about you.
I love that concept of planting seeds. It's truthfully how I have thought about my own business historically, right? So I've practiced law for some time here in Washington, and I built that whole business face to face in conversations, like really getting to know people, right? And each conversation I just thought of as, planting a seed. Like the reality is, even in down markets, like even in times right now, work comes from other people. Full stop. That's where work comes from. So I think one of the biggest strengths and the biggest opportunities that people have is when they can show up and communicate clearly with other people and be top of mind, right? And it sounds like your messaging, right? Everything we do in our business is publicity. And it either is going to, create a yes in the mind of somebody we're connecting with, whether it's yes for support, yes for referrals, or yes as a client, or a no. What are the biggest challenges you face working with your clients? What's the hardest part about your work?
I think the hardest part is having people understand that no matter what you're doing, you're always doing publicity. So you might as well get it right from the beginning. Like when I hear someone say a few things like, oh, I'm not quite ready. Like that to me is a kiss of death for them more so than for me.
Right.
Because they have this I'm not ready mindset, which is ridiculous because honestly, if you're in business, you're ready. Kind of
You're
like
already doing it. You're already doing it.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's like your work, right? You're out in the world. You're legally, you're sending out contracts no matter what. So you might as well do it the correct way.
That's
So I
right.
think that's the biggest challenge is having people understand how easy publicity is, or at least the way I make it is. So I've been told many times. And so I've always been dedicated to making this an easy, replicatable process that people can actually systemize and do it and get it done without the whatever head stuff goes on for people.
Well, and I love that. I think that, even that conversation of, certain people thinking I'm not quite ready yet, sounds to me like the perception is, and a lot of people I'm sure fall into this category, that, people who are actively getting publicity or the way that they're thinking about publicity means that like, oh, it's for the top dogs in the industry, or it's for people that have already built a certain size of business. Is that correct? Is that one of the misconceptions then that people have?
That's absolutely a misconception. And I'm going to tell you, because I work with small business owners, independent coaches, solopreneurs, and they're getting publicity. And you know what's driving their business? Prospects and familiarity and trust, because they're already doing publicity. Right. And including word of mouth, including referrals, including media, including the way they show up in social media. All of it matters and all of it counts and all of it's publicity. See, this is the thing that most people don't realize is, hey, guess what? You're doing publicity, whether you know it or not. So let's do it the right way.
That's right. That's right. What do you have to say for folks who are like, you know what? that sounds great. Like I'd totally love to be pro, but you also hear, and I experience this myself in different areas of business, progress over perfection, right? Just get out there, just be doing it, like make progress, be less concerned about perfection than you are about progress. And it's funny because I was hosting a live, I've been doing an Ask Me Anything live every Monday. And this week, my 2-year-old and my 7-year-old burst into the door at the same time. My 2-year-old has one of those confetti pop guns, and she's like, pow, pow, in the background, and confetti's going everywhere. And I just had to laugh. And I was like, you know what? Right now, especially in the midst of COVID, my life is all like progress over perfection. There is very little perfection going on. And I hear you on the precise and the concise. What do you have to say to people who are like, you know what? Like, I just need to be getting out. I just need to be doing it. And I don't have time or the energy right now to be worrying about perfection.
So my thing is done is better than perfect. Listen, I don't have 4 books because I'm a perfectionist. I just get them done. And part of how I get them done is I get them out of my hands into the hands of professionals in certain arenas who can help me. So I'm really big on get people on your team who know what the heck they're doing in certain arenas. Like I'm on people's team because I'm smart in the area of publicity and messaging. These are my gifts, right? I help people get book deals. That's a separate thing I do. That's part of my gifts. So I think that you got to get with people who know what they're doing, and that's perfect and that's great. And perfection is not the thing right now. And I love progress over perfection. I just call it, just get the darn thing done, right?
That's right.
And that it doesn't matter about perfection because other people can help perfect it. So my people in my program who are getting their books done, I have editors on stand, so that they help them edit the final perfection. And, I had editors for every one of my books because I'm not the editor. I get the ideas out. I interview the people. Great. Those are my skills. Know what you're good at and please delegate the rest. And because we live in such a wonderful world, there are so many people you can work with that are highly affordable now. If it's a matter of finance, there's just so many great ways we can get projects done without spending a fortune. And that's important. Meaning getting the project done.
Right. Yep. Well, and I love it. Done is better than perfect. So I'm curious, I really want to hear about the kindness theme, right? So you're an expert you're an international speaker on kindness. You have a book on the profit of kindness. Talk to us about what's happening inside that book.
Well, what's been wonderful about the book is it's kind of taken a life of its own, which has been terrific. And I have this thing I call use everything you've got. That's part of my publicity and what I teach. So I have to tell you, when the Profit of Kindness came out, as much as I'd like to jump up and down and go, "Ooh, Jill's got a new book out." And yeah, that's exciting, of course. And that's not the story, right? And so I do what I do with all my clients. I sat back and I go, okay, what's the story? What's the message? And what I got was that, well, these are divided states of America. And that's the story, the divided states of America, that got me talking about kindness on 7 Fox TV news stations in the first 8 days of the release of that book. That's gotten me on a Iranian magazine cover, and Australia, and into Forbes magazine and Inc. magazine, because I pushed a right button, which is kindness, how you use it in business. And I've got inside the book 7 what I call return on kindness principles. These are things that connect and create, everybody's concerned about ROI, as you should be. And I got ROK, rocks, and that's return on kindness principles. So, one of them, for example, is patience. And by the way, I created these words, including up to the last day of deadline, where I crossed out one and put in another. No, I want this word instead. That's called the book writing process.
Yes.
But I remember on the chapter in patience, it was so fun because, of course, everything comes up to test my patience, including I was on the phone with my utility company. And, if you've ever been on the phone with any of these, you understand about patience. And probably an hour later, I love when they come on, they say, "Oh, thank you for your patience." And I'm thinking, Who said I was patient?
Yeah. Did I have a choice in the matter? Yeah.
That's right. I love when people thank me for my patience because it's like, wait a minute, I didn't say I was patient, but I find practicing patience is one of those wonderful things of kindness. And I also have a beautiful story about a man who, because I have to say, because I'm a publicity expert, I also look at how does kindness generate publicity, and of course, kind companies get more publicity. That's just what's true. And if you look at what's happening right now, Honda was doing a big campaign on kindness. They're in the San Francisco Bay Area. There was a large bus campaign from a major healthcare provider called the Human Kindness Campaign. I thought that was interesting. And that was Dignity Health. So I'm like, okay, this is good. It's like on the side of buses right now. Yeah. So all good.
Yeah. Well, I love that message. I love your story about like creating a whole book around it and how it helps us in business. And I agree. I think kindness goes a long way. I was just part of a mastermind where we actually were talking about how do you build generosity into your business systems and frameworks, and it's a similar thing. Like, how do you just create a business that has this kind of stuff built in?
Heather, wait, I just have to say one thing. First of all, I'm so glad you're asking that question. What a beautiful question to ask yourselves and your team. And generosity is actually one of the return on kindness principles, because the truth is, the more generous you are, let's be honest, it comes back in spades. We do it because it's the right thing to do and a good thing for business. But guess what? It increases everything that happens to you too.
Well, that's right. And we have opportunities to be generous inside of our businesses and with ourselves, and generous externally, right? To everybody that we interact with outside of our businesses. And I just think there's, every opportunity we can to build that into just the fabric of how we do our business is really an important conversation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And I love that you're having it.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's been fun. It's been really a fun thing to participate in. It's been a mastermind that has run for 6 months, and it's been really interesting. So for folks that are out there and are like, media, publicity, I haven't thought much about this before, but, I'd like to know more. And I know we're going to include ways to get in touch with you, but I'm still curious about, the media script. What is it? How do people use it? What should people know about the importance of having one, or how to create one?
Yeah, so it's really important to have a media script. All my clients have a particular script that they go out with that's obviously customized for who they are and what they're promoting and approaching the media with. However, let me just say the thing I started out with talking about, the problem today, is a great media script. So fill that one in. The problem today is
I love that.
Yes, thank you. Use statistics, because the media cares about what their readers, their viewers, their listeners care about. I remember when I was writing guerrilla publicity, I actually got the privilege of talking to the editor of Entrepreneur Magazine, the editor of Fast Company, and I asked them, what do you love about publicity? Tell us more. And they said, be concise and precise, which is why I always repeat that, and give value and benefit. So when you define the problem today, and then you give 3 solutions, and I like 3 because people can think in threes, remember in threes, and it's fairly easy, so I don't want your 5 tips. I don't want your 7 ways. I just want 3. Right? And I always say to people, good, take all those and let's do the top 3, and give people real things to do. If you notice in my publicity message, I gave you real things to think about and actually do. Show up twice a month, right? Which is in Zoom, easy to do now. We love this. And and create your ooh ah factor, which is also a sound bite, and brings people back to like, oh yes, I like that ooh ah factor, right? So you're thinking and speaking in sound bites. That's really helpful.
No, I love that. And speaking of the ooh ah factor, how do people figure out what that is? Is it something that they already have going on? Is it something they need to create? What is that?
Well, it's usually something you've got going on. right? It's usually about your story that maybe you haven't even thought about. Like my client, Ryan, he's an instructional designer. And Heather, I didn't even know what that was. And then he told me, because see, he knew the power of publicity to bring him clients. He had been downsized from his corporate job. And next thing you know, he's like, okay, I'm starting my own business. And being an instructional designer, I'm like, no offense, I don't think that's going to get you the media you want. Tell me your story. And then he told me he'd been downsized from a corporate job. He told me he had a pregnant wife with their third kid on the way. He told me he had just bought a big house, right? I'm like, wait a minute. You got a big house and a big mortgage payment and a wife who's with a third child and you got no job. What'd you do? This is, how he had started his business. He said, well, I started my own business online. Within 24 hours. He literally had people engaged in virtual design, and he was running a virtual business. I thought, well, now that's interesting. And I made him into what we called a virtual office warrior. And the acronym for that is VOW. Ryan took a vow never to work in an office again. Do you know that story? That story got him into the front page of the San Francisco Business Times. Hello, imagine what that would do for your business, right? That story got him into Entrepreneur Magazine. That story got him into Mac Home Journal and literally created story after story that raised his business revenues by 40% using the power of publicity. And, that's the power of using a story that's an ooh, ah factor, not the fact that he's an instructional designer. It actually had nothing to do with that, but we drove people back. That's what we got to find for each of your businesses. What's your ooh, ah factor? And I would ask you to look at how does it relate maybe to perhaps the times, what's going on. Like I have a woman, she's a Black coach. And as much as we had a story about some of the other pieces of what she coached about, we shifted her story to talk about being a Black woman in America. And she's talking about that. And that's what's getting her into media, using everything she's got and her ooh, ah factor. So how can you be shifting your message to work not only in the times maybe of right now and going forward, but also looking at your history and what's interesting, what's dynamic, what's a fact that maybe you just hadn't told others before. And if I may, just one more example of my wonderful nurse. She helps people get to Uganda for nonprofit missions, medical missions, right? But she kept forgetting to tell people she's a neuroscience nurse. I'm like, Precious, you got to tell people this, right?
I know Precious.
Isn't she fantastic?
She's lovely.
Yes, she is. Well, I've had the blessing and privilege of working with her. She's been in my publicity course multiple times, and she's just an amazing human being, but she kept forgetting to tell people this. So after, a little bit of, this is for her, the ooh, ah factor, and the fact that she treats 5,000 kids in 3 days. I mean, who can do this, right? It's like a miracle.
That's
so
amazing.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, those are great examples. I think and working with somebody like yourself, I think it helps to take the pressure off because I know I probably speak for many when I say this, but we're all too close to what we do. We're all too close to our own stories, to our work. We don't look at it from the lens of how other people see us. And so we're not always aware of what would be interesting to somebody else, and especially what would be that key thing to be the hook, to create that ooh, ah factor. So how do you help dig that out of people? You just have them tell you their stories?
I do. It's honestly God's gift to me is looking underneath the story and hearing what's in it for the others. What haven't they said that's underneath that? And so I'm digging. I'm a bit of a digger, and then I'm listening for the things that people say that they don't even hear how magnificent it is. Those sound bites that come dripping out of your mouth. I call it the gold that comes out of your mouth that frankly, people don't even hear themselves say, maybe because they've said it a lot or haven't said it enough, perhaps. But I'm listening for a new way to reframe their message so that it works and that it's consistent and powerful.
I love that. Well, and I think, even in my experience on this podcast so far, everybody has a story. I find every single guest fascinating and like just a treasure trove, right? And so I know what you're talking about. Like you just want to dig in and scoop more out and just keep scooping. Well, that is so fun. So you mentioned something earlier that I want to go back to, which is about the ROI of publicity. Yep. And then I know you've got to go. So this is the last question, and then we'll talk about your free gift and where people can contact you. Talk to us just for 1 minute about ROI.
Thank you. Absolutely. So I always like to say publicity equals high return on investment. What do I mean by that? I mean that it brings you increased prospects. I mean that it gives you more sales. I mean that it gives you more credibility and more visibility. And how about clients? We need more of those, right? More money. It makes you more money, and it gives you more exposure in the marketplace. And as I like to say, only the good kind, right? So what I've seen is that Ryan, the gentleman I told you about, by using everything he's got, he's actually Asian American, we were able to translate an article into Chinese, put it into the Chinese Times, and that one article generated $7,000 of business, consulting business for him, one article. And that doesn't even count all the other ones I told you about before, right? That's high ROI. And I want my clients to get it. And I also think that there's a trust factor that you can measure in ways that are maybe not quite as, one article generated $7,000.
Right.
But trust is important in the marketplace now. Authenticity, trust, honesty, people need to see you as all of that. And so it generates all of that for you in simple and easy ways.
Yes. Well, and I love that. And what you're saying about not every single thing being measurable, I think is really important, but being in different places, showing up in the way that you want to can lead to that point that you made earlier about, where have I seen you? How have I already heard about your work, even though we haven't met, right?
Okay, well, Heather, if I must say, can I just tell you one thing?
Yes.
Because I call that the I've heard of you somewhere syndrome. Seriously. Yes. And that's my name for it, because that's what happens. And that trust factor, people get it, whether consciously or unconsciously, they've seen you somewhere.
Well, I love that. And for anybody who's ever been on the receiving end of that comment, like how nice is it to go, oh, this person somehow came across my work or heard of me, and we hadn't even connected yet. So it's really, really valuable thing. Well, Jill, you've given us so much to think about, and I love just how easily you break it down. It feels like you make it a very straightforward process for people. So talk to us a little bit. I know you've got a free gift for the audience. So talk to us a little bit about your free gift.
Absolutely. So I invite you to actually a live interactive publicity webinar with me. I'm live. I'm helping you, answering your questions, and I'd love to invite you to register. You go to jilllublin.com/publicity, and that'll bring you right in, and it'll be wonderful to answer your questions direct. And that is my free gift to you, with lots more content and great ways that you can get your name out there.
That's amazing. Live exposure to Jill. That's fabulous. Well, Jill, I so appreciate you taking time to come on today. For those listening, you can find a link to Jill's free gift, as well as wherever she shows up online. We'll put her various contact information up there at legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast. Jill, what final thought would you like to leave with our audience?
My most important thought is that your message matters. Your message matters. Let's get it out there.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jill. It's been such a pleasure to connect.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on the Guts, Grit, and Great Business Podcast. We hope that we've added a little fuel to your tank, some coffee to your cup, and pep in your step to keep you moving forward in your own great adventures. For key takeaways, links to any resources mentioned in today's show and more, see the show notes, which can be found at legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, and if you enjoyed today's conversation, please give us some stars and a review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, so others will find us too. Keep up the great work you are doing in the world, and we'll see you next week.